So let me ask you this. Um, okay. So 3.8 billion you said goes to Israel?
3.8 billion a year. Plus, let me just add real quick before you ask your question. Plus, whenever something occurs out of the ordinary, AIPAC writes a bill for Congress to appropriate more money for Israel. So during my first term, we annually, no matter what, if everything's quiet, calm, 3.8 billion is already earmarked. But my first term, Hamas sent rockets to attack Israel, and Israel had to use some of its Iron Dome defense resources. And right after that, AIPAC wrote a bill so that we could send an additional billion to Israel on top of the 3.8 billion. Right now, with the attacks happening in Gaza right now, we just passed a bill sending an additional 14 billion to Israel, almost like to help them re-up their military resources after this conflict. So that whenever they need it, we got it. That's how it goes.
Okay. Okay. So a lot of money gets sent to Israel, right? Why is so much money being sent to Israel as opposed to other countries, let's say the Congo or the Sudan? And why you're in the inside of this, right? I'm asking you a question that I kind of already know the answer to, but I want you to articulate it. Why are some countries prioritized, like Ukraine, in their fight against Russia or Israel, or other countries, prioritized as far as U.S. dollars going, U.S. military support, and then other countries that have conflicts, like Sudan, who's in the midst of the worst humanitarian crisis right now, and Congo, who's also in the midst of another humanitarian crisis, or even Haiti, who doesn't even have a government right now. Why is this not prioritized on the board the same way that a Ukraine would be, or other country?
We give priority and preference to European nations first and our European allies first. And we also give priority to settler colonial nations as well, like Canada, like Australia, like Israel. Western nations, another term for European nations, siphon and extract resources from Black and Brown global South nations, and give them back pennies on the dollar for those resources, like cobalt in the Congo, for example, and other natural resources. And so that's the design of our foreign policy. We extract resources from the continent of Africa, from Central and South America, from the global South. Those resources build wealth in the West, which are European nations, and again, we give them back pennies on the dollar. So the money to Israel is part of supporting another settler colonial project, which Israel is, and is also part of securing our interests, America's interests in the Middle East. Israel's in the middle of many mostly Muslim countries. Those Muslim countries have a precious natural resource that we need, which is oil. In order to make sure that oil continues to come to us in a way that's beneficial to America without so much conflict, we need an ally there that can help do that. That is Israel. This is couched under the idea that we also support Israel because of the Holocaust and Jewish persecution, and they needed a safe state and safe place to call home, which is part of the conversation as well. And then our ongoing fight against anti-Semitism. However, that's only part of it. The other part of it, and there's a quote from President Biden when he was Senator Biden on this issue, was where he says, if we didn't have an Israel, we would have to invent an Israel to protect America's interests. So it's a geopolitical game to protect America's interests, which is resources, land, and power.
So when I hear this, the first thing it makes me think like hopefully people are aware, but if not, having the education around it is super important. And then the next thing it was like, how do we evoke change? How do we put people who are change agents in position to make sure that there's people speaking on behalf of people who feel, that that is systemic, right? We can see systemically how this really doesn't benefit people that look like us. The other part of it is when I'm looking at a campaign that's being run against you and I'm hearing things said, right? When I know the character of the man, like I know you as a principal first, like I said, people know our history. Like I saw you as a principal, a man, an educator, a father. How much of the defamation that is inside of these campaigns is number one to attack you, but also to say to a younger generation, like if you are to now be in that position that Representative Bowman is in, this is also the fate that could happen to you and shy people away from participating in the process.
It's a great question and a great point. This is not only about me. This is about what I represent. Working class, black man, raised by a single mom, educated for 20 years, fighting for working class issues and issues of justice and equality and humanity overall. One that's been outspoken on a number of issues and not afraid to challenge the status quo. Their ads, their attacks, their investments in this race is all about reminding everyone, if you come for us, this is what you're going to get. And, I see it manifested in my district. No other elected official in my district has taken any of the stances I've taken in terms of calling for a permanent ceasefire or some of the other things we fight for, like reparations. That's not something that many elected officials in my district, if any, are talking about or leading, being loud on or championing in government. And so, yeah, the message is don't even try it. And that's why it is imperative that we win this race. And I'm going to be very, very clear. Over 10,000, way over 10,000, maybe over 20,000. We only have numbers for 10,000 Black and Latino men in the district who have never voted before. Now, I know the reason they've never voted, right? Because the system has failed them over and over and over again and is designed to fail them. I get that. But for the first time in me, you actually have someone who's just like you in office trying to fight for the things we need and care about. And so if those over 20,000 Black and Latino men were to begin to participate, not only do they help me win re-election, but they begin to change the political calculus in the district and in the county and begin to build power in the county. If everyone who was registered to vote, or if everyone 18 over got registered and actually voted, or the vast majority, we would not have big money in politics controlling politics the way we currently do. We would actually have a democracy, but we don't have a democracy now. We have an oligarchy because it's the wealth that's controlling politics. And you have some outliers like me, Ayanna Presley, AOC, and the squad, for example, who are like the outliers to that. And that's why that 100 million that AIPAC is spending, they're coming directly for us because we are part of inspiring a generation. I'm the only male. It's 8 women, 7 women, 1 dude. That's me. We're all people of color or black and brown. 2 are Muslim. 1 wears a hijab. Those are the people AIPAC is targeting more than everybody else. That's not an accident.
What do you say to the percentage of the audience that may hear you tonight, but still may feel like them voting or being involved in the process of democracy doesn't benefit them? Any words of encouragement or insights to give them of how they can make change, even if they feel like the system is against them?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I get it because historically it hasn't. But I'm a clear example of the opposite of that. I've only been in Congress 3 years. We've brought over $1 billion back to the district and specifically are seeking to invest those dollars into the pockets of marginalized people, Black and brown people in the district, because AIPAC and my opponent don't want that to happen. They are spending more money against me than they've ever spent in their history. And I've only been there 3 years. So that shows the amount of impact we have had since we've been in office. And they know the longer I'm in office, the more power I am going to generate and the more resources I'm going to be able to bring and the more I'm going to be able to empower others. And what's great about this, in 2020, when I ran for office, we tripled voter turnout from 2018 to 2020, elections every 2 years. So from 2018 to 2020, we tripled voter turnout. What's been great about the ads, Brother Troy, to your question, when I walk around in the Black community, I can't even get a half a block before I'm surrounded by Black men in particular. Like, yo, we see those ads. That's some bullshit. We see how they coming at you. We got you. We gonna come out and vote. Blah 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 blah. So what they're doing is, because at some point it's diminishing returns. You run all these ads and people begin to know, like, this must be some BS. Plus, we're telling them on our side, this is big money, mostly Republican money, by the way, that funds AIPAC. And let me not even say Republican money, fascist money, like the kind of Republican money that didn't want to certify the 2020 election, like that kind of money is funding AIPAC. And so the hope is, and we're being strategic about this, we get those Black men out, we get those young people out, we get young people of color out in record numbers, just like 2020, and we're able to win. And when we do that, inshallah, when we do that, it changes the trajectory for a generation, most likely.
So let me ask you this. Affordability in Black, and you were on the reparation panel at InvestFest last year with
Yes,
Ben Crump, yourself, a bunch of other people. There was a very high-powered panel. So thank you for coming to InvestFest last year and speaking on the So you've been championing reparations for a while. But affordability and Black wealth, this is issues that's extremely important. In your district, it's important. When you look at your district, is one of the wealthiest districts in America, but also has some of the poorest neighborhoods in America at the same time, right?
in time.
You got Eden Wall projects. You got, Scarsdale, right? You got Mount Vernon, and then you got Ardsley, right? And it's actually a tale of America and how separate but so close within a couple of miles. You have some of the wealthiest places, and then you have the projects, right? And the wealthy people will never come to the projects, and the people in the projects probably will never be in the wealthy people's house ever, right? So talk about, and it's always these neighborhoods that are poor, Yonkers, South Yonkers, it's always Black people and Spanish people. Black and Latino people, they always permeate these neighborhoods. So talk about affordability, Black wealth creation, and what your agenda is to kind of bridge that.
Yeah, I want to start with the issue of affordable housing. So there's an affordable housing crisis across the country, and it's really manifested in Westchester County. We need about 80,000 units in the county. My opponent hasn't really done much about that, even though he's been county executive for a number of years. One of the challenges to providing truly affordable housing, so working class housing, or let's call it low income housing, right? Those who work full time, don't make much money, but need housing, need affordable housing at a rate, in terms of federal policy, 30% of salary. That's capped at 30% of salary towards housing. We just introduced a bill today that's capping, looking to cap rental costs at 20% of salary, to go even lower. But what happens is places like Scarsdale, places like Rye, the wealthier areas, they don't allow affordable housing to be built in their communities. They only want a certain type of culture, and this is a quote from them, to live in those communities. They don't want buildings, even if they're small buildings. They don't want multifamilies. They want single family to maintain the culture that they have in those communities. But if we're going to really have affordable housing to meet the needs of everyone in the district, we should be building in those areas as well. So that's a key important point. Another point is The fact that the reason why we don't have more affordable housing is because the housing stock is low, and it's low by design from Wall Street to keep prices up. We believe housing is a fundamental human right. And if you pay taxes and you live in America, a wealthy nation, you should be able to have affordable, dignified housing. As you know, childcare also isn't affordable for the working class. Utilities are crazy. Food is crazy. Transportation, it's hard to, people are just working to survive right now. So there's a couple ways to handle that. One is making sure corporations and the wealthy pay their fair share. We're not saying take all their money in taxes, but they should be paying a little more so that we could build more affordable housing and deal with utilities and all of that. Right now, that's not happening. The other part of it, Black wealth building, is not just about financial literacy. It's also about public investments in repairing the harms that have happened historically in America. And so reparations is about responding to redlining. Redlining is when our communities were isolated and devalued simply because they were Black. We need to now reinvest federal dollars in those areas to rebuild those areas and allow them to begin a bootstrapping system of building wealth within their own neighborhoods. The federal government has subsidized building white wealth since the beginning of America. It's never done that for Black people. So that needs to happen. That's what reparations is all about. And then finally, the issue of entrepreneurship is really, really key. But the issue of entrepreneurship around new ideas is really, really key as well. And so financial literacy is what we need and all of that, proper investments. But we need new ideas. We need to build and design new products and services that America and the world needs to help us build wealth. Similar to this apparatus we're working on now, both the hardware and the software that we're using has built wealth for individuals and groups. We need to do the same thing as well. And to me, the pathway to that is technology. And because technology, to me, is still in its infant stage, is still like a gold rush type of space. But this is why I advocate so much for STEM education in our schools, because we got brilliant kids, but we got to make sure they're thinking on an entrepreneurship level, not just a worker level.